Big Questions with the Dead Milkmen.
Well, first of all, happy birthday to Dave Blood.
Happy birthday, Dave Blood. And also
Although
Keith
you're
from the
watching this on a
Prodigy.
different day.
It would have been his birthday today too.
Who did?
Keith from the Prodigy would have been his birthday too, which is really disturbing. But yeah, but happy birthday, Dave Blood.
And to the other guy. This week's question is if you could introduce a serial killer to someone you can't stand, who would it be? Is that how I worded it? Or basically that.
You said you were talking to your sister. Were you talking to your sister yesterday?
It wasn't yesterday, but yeah, we were just like having a conversation and like we were talking about stuff, and I think, you know, she said pretty much that. And I found it hard to answer, but I finally chose Ed Gein. I went with a mainstream guy. And I'm not proud of my reasons, but I guess because he did a lot of art with the people's skin, and I think that's horrible and disgusting, but kind of interesting too. And that he did something productive with something horrible.
Was he the guy who dressed like a clown?
No, that's John Wayne Gacy.
John Wayne
But
Gacy.
how are you guys in a punk rock band? You guys are okay. First of all,
What do you mean, you guys?
5-yard penalty on Ed Gein. Ed Gein was not a serial killer. Ed Gein killed 2 old women.
He dug up a lot of bodies.
He may have killed his brother. He may have killed his brother. And so just saying, okay, exact words, Marcia, exact words.
Well, I knew, Charles Manson's out. We talked about Richard Speck was out because he just was like a mass murderer. That's the scariest book I've ever read in my life.
Yep. And as we established earlier, the board of directors of Union Carbine, we can't count them for killing all those people in Beaufort. That was a mass murder.
Yeah. And, Ed Gein is like, the movie Psycho is based on him, and I believe Silence of the Lambs, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And yeah, it is interesting that a lot of the skulls and flesh that he used was from bodies that he dug up, like mostly freshly buried. I guess he's trying to replicate his mom or something.
He liked to wear flesh as clothing. Here, this is, folks, if you've just tuned in, we've strayed into an area of my expertise. I know a lot about serial killers, and the best thing, if you know a lot about serial killers, it will keep hipsters from talking to you at parties. All the things the hipsters hate are the things I love. They hate Halloween, serial killers, and nudity. And if somebody starts coming up to you and starts talking about their old-timey baseball outfit, and how they like to play, just start talking about serial killers. So I'm going to be annoying and jump in on a lot of stuff, but this is an area I know a lot about. I actually, sitting a few feet behind me is a lot of murderabilia. I own a lot of serial killer things.
I got rid of it recently, but I had these true crime trading cards, and it definitely did get me laid at some point, like 20 some years ago, that I had that box set. So I'm sorry, that was a little TMI.
Well, wait, why would you introduce Ed Gein though to somebody you didn't like? Because Ed Gein seems.
Well, honestly, excuse me, this is gonna sound weird, but I can't think of anybody that I would want anything like that to happen to. So it's kind of.
Well, they're already dead when Ed Gein gets to them.
That was another safety that I felt, was like that most of the people were already dead. Not that makes it any less disgusting, but morally, I guess I don't know, who am I to judge morals?
Somebody once asked me if I thought if there was sex like after death, and I said, well, if Ed Gein gets a hold of you, yeah, sure.
I can. My runners up were Gary Heidnick, and I thought about Albert Fish, but I definitely don't want any kids to be harmed, because I think that's all he was going for. Unless you want to take the question to the, introduce you to Albert Fish so you can have cocktails with him somewhere and you're safe, because he's gonna not go after you, an adult male.
If you're going worst to the worst, though, Albert Fish is up there. He shorted out the electric chair.
We will not provide links.
For those of you who
Albert
don't
Fish.
follow this stuff, Albert Fish liked to stick pins in his body, and they electrocuted him, and that had an interesting effect on the electric chair.
All 3 times. Yeah. All right. So that was my answer.
Okay, so my answer, I really am not an expert in this area at all, but I did do some research. And one of the things that I found very interesting is that the Italians like to give their serial killers names. In other words, they usually call them like the Monster of Florence or the Monster of Milan. They even have, one was called the Hyena of San Giorgio, and one was called the Soap Maker of Correggio. I don't know why they attach these. I guess the media over there likes to get. Yeah, right. Speaking of the Monster of Florence, he murdered at least 16 people in the hills outside of Florence between 1968 and 1965. In fact, Dan referencing.
Wait, that's back. Or he traveled back in time.
19, here's the referee over here.
He was a time traveler, like Jack the Ripper in that H.G. Wells movie.
Yeah, 1985. I'm sorry. And in fact, Dan, I was going to reference this. The case had a little bit of influence on the writer Thomas Harris, who wrote the Hannibal Lecter series, on the 3rd book called Hannibal.
Yeah.
It's kind of referenced in that. Some of the things around the Monster of Florence are referenced in there, or used, I guess, as part of the story. Another Italian killer was called Cesare Servati, and he was known as the Landru of the Tiber. And I didn't really know what that was all about. He killed at least 3 women.
Wow.
Landru actually comes from a French serial killer named Henri Désiré Landru. He was charged and found guilty of 11 murders. This is really early in the last century. Sometimes he was known as the Bluebeard of Gambay. And interestingly enough, Ronnie, you said you had some collections of things. His head, he was sentenced and executed by guillotine, and his head disappeared from the grave. And somehow it's apparently on display in the Museum of Death in Los Angeles. I don't know, Rodney, have you ever been to that museum?
No, the museum. That actually, I think the Museum of Death is, unfortunately, we were right across from it once. I wanted to visit. It's been shut down for a while. The one thing I do want to see, I want to see the 100-year-old dead
Code
clown
violation.
in L.A. There's a 100-year-old dead clown I want to check out there. He's next to a car wash. But other than that,
they supposedly have his head on display there. There's a picture of it, which you'll see on the screen very shortly. And well, as an aside, the Museum of Death, Rodney, they apparently have a fashion contest every year, holds a Black Dahlia lookalike competition, where contestants have to dress as both pre and post-mortem Dahlia.
I understand that Ronald Reagan killed the Black Dahlia.
Yeah, I've heard that story somewhere.
I thought somebody was going to go say what, but no, nobody did.
We'll provide a link.
Anyway, so that's my answer. Basically, I looked into the large collection of Italian serial killers, which there's a list of them on Wikipedia, which we'll provide a link to.
Did they only kill other Italians?
Yeah, they were within the country of Italy. So
I'm married to an Italian. I sleep with one eye open. I am. Why is it the Italians get these cool nicknames like the Monster of Naples and and then Germans are always the vampire of. It's the vampire of Dusseldorf, the vampire of Berlin. It's like, come on, Germans, kick up the imagination. So I'm glad. Also, both Hillside Stranglers were Italian Americans. So it's good to see them breaking that glass ceiling. This is what happens when you change people's names at Ellis Island. All right, they're just gonna murder you. Okay, is it me? I think it is. Okay, so there's no place to escape to. This is the last big question on the left. Rise from your graves. That's when the cannibalism started. Oh shit! Hello, I'm Ben Kissel, here with Marcus Parks and the always entertaining Henri Zabrowski. All right, there you go, folks. We've turned into the last podcast on the left because everything eventually becomes true crime. So where are we? Okay, so I decided I'm going with the worst of the worst. I thought when I got the question, I thought just pick the most miserable son of a bitches on the planet, and I'm going to go with Leonard Lake and Charles Ng. In the early 80s in south of San Francisco, sort of Sacramento area, these guys, what they were basically convicted of was murdering 3 women, which doesn't sound like a lot. They got them for 7 men and 2 babies. And they think there may be as many as 25 people. When they dug up their land, they found 45 pounds worth of bones. These guys were just the absolute biggest. They kidnapped 2 families. They would kidnap the wife, the husband, and a baby, and then off the husband and use the baby to make the wife do things. And they filmed this. They filmed 3 women. The 3 women we definitely know they killed. They filmed it, and it is horrendous to watch. They're the absolute scum. The reason they got caught was because they broke a vice, torturing a table vice, torturing a victim. And then Charles Ng, who was a kleptomaniac, he was the kleptomaniac of the pair. He tried to shoplift a vice, throw it into the back of Leonard Lake's car, and then like run off. And then they took a look at Leonard Lake's car, and then they were like, oh, well, yeah, you got this vice back here. So, oh, by the way, your license plate, this matches a car that was taken from someone who's missing. This woman had been looking for her missing brother. So this is where all the male murders came from. Leonard Lake would murder men just to assume their own identity. He did this to his own brother. He killed his own brother just so he could get like his brother's social security text, masquerade out. He did it to a lot of like military personnel. He off them. He was also the taking of the women. He was obsessed with the book, The Collector. By the way, if you ever see Terrence Stamp, The King of Men, is in the film The Collector. So you should definitely see that. Also read the book. He had this thing called Project Miranda after the women in The Collector, where all he planned to do was to kidnap women, keep them in a bunker, and make them into sex slaves. It is scary as hell when you see he did it at least 3 times. The footage is very, very frightening. These guys are the absolute pond scum. For Charles Ng, as far as the babies go, Charles Ng had little cartoons that he drew of him like slapping the babies around and cooking them. I mean, these guys are the lowest of the low. I mean, up, down there with the Hillside Stranglers, down there with the Moors murders. At first I thought, go with Britain. Britain always has like, Peter Sutcliffe. Like I say, you've got the Moors murderers, you've got Dennis Nielsen. The British really excel in that. Hey, we'll go all the way back to Jack the Ripper. But I thought just pick the most disgusting 2 and talk about them. And anybody that's watching this is into true crime, we'll go look that out. And anybody who's a hipster has left by this point because this is kryptonite to them. So yeah, if you we'll put up links, but be careful when you look at this stuff, because these 2 are. I was talking to Vienna, who is also obviously in quite knowledgeable about serial killers as well. And I'm not going to show anything from my collection because every time I talk about it, I get about a dozen death threats. But she's very knowledgeable as well. And another thing, we don't sort of we don't think these people are cool. There's a point when you're in your 20s where it's kind of like, now we're just kind of horrified by it, but fascinated by the horror. My wife falls asleep to these sort of true crime things playing in the background, and I get them through osmosis. But yeah, Leonard Lake and Charles Ng. Leonard Lake is dead. He took he had a cyanide tablet sewn into his clothing, and he took it after they busted him. And Leonard Lake went on the run. Eventually, they caught him. Charles Ng. They caught Charles Ng, the most expensive trial in California history. A real son of a bitch. He kept trying to delay it. So yeah, if you're looking for 2 absolute, bottom of the barrel bastards, Leonard Lake and Charles Ng, and those are my 2. And I'll field any questions that you guys have about any serial killer. It doesn't have to be that. Oh, see, and look, I'm Ben Kissel because I got the light here.
Oh, I thought it said Ute.
And away! Henri Zabrowski doing a Spring Heel Jack impersonation. All right, sorry. All right, I think Joe's up now.
I would introduce my nemesis to Richard Kuklinski.
Ooh, nice man.
also known as the Iceman. That's his nickname. He murdered over 100 people by his own account. He claims maybe 200, 100 to 200. But the reason is I'm pretty confident he would get the job done, except that he's dead now. So
He was a hitman, yeah.
but he wasn't just a hitman. He murdered for his own purposes too. He was a criminal, and he also purportedly murdered just because he got angry with people. And it's debatable whether somebody who's a contract killer is a serial killer, but I think that he is a serial killer, and he had an interesting psychology because he lived a double life successfully until he was caught. His family knew nothing of his business, and he was a very good father, according to his daughter. And yeah, he loved his children and he loved his wife. He himself had a terrible upbringing. He was beaten by both his father and his mother, and maybe that's partly why he turned out to be the way, I don't know, the way he was, but
he paid the bills,
Well, Kuklinski's parents would beat him with a loaf of bread inside a sack, but on his birthday, they beat him with cake.
supposedly his mother beat him so roughly that she broke broom handles on him, but and for no reason except that he didn't finish his task early enough. But he the first murder he did, he killed somebody because he had an argument with him. He was angry. I don't think he meant to kill him, but he just killed him, not with a gun or anything. He just whacked him, and then he felt sad for a couple of days, he said, and there's interviews with him. There's documentaries on HBO where they interview him. But he eventually lost the sadness and felt a great power, and he liked killing, and that became his profession. He killed for money. So if you had like a few grand, maybe $500,000, he would kill somebody for it until he got caught. And he got caught, I think part of the reason he got caught was he froze one of his victims, and the victim was 2 years later, since he was still frozen. He unfortunately froze part of the evidence of the killing with it, and the fact that he was killed, and he matched well, you'll see it if you watch the HBO documentaries about him, but that's who I chose, Richard Kuklinski.
In the HBO documentary, Kuklinski has this tick that he does when he would get angry at somebody and get ready to kill them. And he starts getting angry at the guy interviewing him, and you can see that little tick. And it's like that he said later on, he was getting ready to kill the guy interviewing him. He also killed a man once by taking him down to like a little cave type thing, cutting him up and leaving him there for the rats to eat, and setting up a TV camera, like one of those early video cameras, and he had a monitor set back so he could just kind of check in and watch this. Yeah,
he didn't always use guns. He used knives and cyanide and all kinds of methods. So he was creative. He
had a serial killer buddy who drove an ice cream truck.
He claims he killed Jimmy Hoffa, but FBI doesn't believe him for some reason.
Jimmy Hoffa tripped in the bathtub. Yes.
What did his family think he did?
Oh yeah.
That's a good question for his family, I guess. They thought he was a businessman, and a really good one.
Yeah, his daughter will say nothing bad about it. I've seen interviews of her. She said he was the best father in the world.
Yeah, I think John Wayne Gacy's wife and kids said that he was normal too, except that he was a clown.
Yeah.
But hey, man, I like clowns, so I'm not going to say anything negative about that.
That's Ben Kissel's line, the guy I'm impersonating. He says, nobody ever talks about what a great clown John Wayne Gacy was. You never see him, there's a documentary, you never see some kid go, best birthday party I ever had. He made balloon animals.
Yeah, he's actually a pretty decent painter, too, if you've ever seen any of his paintings.
Oh, I've seen them.
Yeah. So, yeah, Joe, I would say that that guy falls into serial killer category, because, like,
yeah,
one of the definitions is that it's like a theme, some kind of thing. And like a contract killer, he gets into his own. That's that theme.
Yeah, I think Kuklinski enjoyed it too much to be considered just a regular contract killer.
He also did his own jobs too, for his own, like he would
double dipping.
He would lure people, I have a whole van, I have all these blank videotapes, and for a really low amount of money, you can come get them and then kill them. There's no videotapes, but here, I'll take your money and you're dead.
That's why pirating video is wrong. Okay, take that FBI warning seriously, people.
Or
okay,
or pharmaceuticals. Those are the things. That's the sort of thing he did.
Well, the important thing is he enjoyed what he did. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't work for him. It wasn't a daily grind. He would never get up and go like, "Oh, I hate Mondays." No, he loved his job and he excelled at it.
His red collar job.
Yeah, his red collar job. That should be that's a good term, Dan. I like that. What are you, a white collar, blue collar, red collar worker? I make people go.
Well, I used to joke when I was like cleaning bathrooms, I was a yellow collar worker.
Oh.
Those days are through. Andy, did you want to chime in on this? What do you think? By the way, you don't have to say who it is.
Andy
you
looks
want
horrified.
I think I came in on the wrong episode.
How is this the wrong episode? How are people in rock and roll bands and don't know a lot about serial killers? I don't get this.
Does Richard Nixon count? I was thinking about.
He did kill that busboy.
He basically they were going to go to the peace table and he sabotaged it so he could win the election.
Yes, he did.
68, and that wound up killing a lot of people.
But again, it's like why we can't count Charles Manson, because Charles Manson ran like a criminal racket. If you're running a criminal racket and you're just doing this stuff to say that, I don't know if that's serial killer. Now he may have enjoyed, for all we know, Nixon enjoyed, shooting sex workers, in part of DC. We can't say anything. He did.
He was a pretty good pianist.
Yeah. Yeah. And he was a 2-drink drunk. If you got 2 drinks in him, Nixon got messed up.
Phlebitis.
Yep. We got on Newcomb, Henry.
Should we move on to recommendations?
Go on to recommendations. This is before this gets any darker.
I would like to do a somewhat shameless self-promotion, but also relevant to Dave Blood's birthday, because a couple of years ago I woke up early in the morning and I just immediately started recording into the voice recorder on my phone, like a dream I had just had. And then I put like a little bit of music under it, but it's about like hanging out with Dave Blood in my dream, and we'll put a link up.
Yeah, that's good. I remember that.
Thanks.
I'm going to recommend my friend Sonia Harris's Etsy website. She is a graphic designer, artist, and if you go to swearingpattern.com, it'll take you to her storefront. She makes these really great designs with curse words in them. It's kind of therapy for her, and she's had a lot of health issues over the last years, and this has gotten her through a lot of pain and so forth. You can see some really cool mugs and mandalas, even throw pillows and clothes and t-shirts, and even like van style slip-on shoes. In fact, I think maybe I got one of her mugs once. Yeah, Dan, I think you have one of her mugs.
And I gotta say, it was probably a good couple months before I saw the secret word in it.
Yeah.
But that was a few years ago, and I use that mug almost every day. And I never told you this, Dean, but one time I was washing it like a week after you gave it to me, and it chipped on the sink. And it's been like that the entire time. And I use it literally 5 times a week.
Great. Yeah.
I didn't mean to steal your thunder in the recommendation.
No, that's all right. It's great. She's having a problem. She had a problem recently on Instagram. Some trolls decided to keep reporting her site for using the word swearing pattern for some reason. And she's gotten into trouble with the Instagram people, but apparently it's being straightened out. But anyway, it's really affected her sales at her site, and this is what's keeping her afloat since she's had all this, health issues and so forth. It's how she makes her living. So if anybody wants to go over and get a coffee mug that says tits on it, go ahead and do it. All right, bye.
Half the dead milkmen love it.
Yeah, this is why, and hey, take my money. I've seen this stuff. It's fantastic. This is why we need a Richard Kuklinski to hunt down the people who reported her. You know what I mean? Where are these people? Okay, so normally I do 2 recommendations, one for your ears, one for your eyes. This week I'm actually going to recommend, 2 movies. So I'm not even going to mention the new Zanias album, Unearthed, which is freaking incredible. We're probably not even going to put up the cover of the new Zanias album, Unearthed, which is really incredible. I'm going to stick with 2 movies. The first movie is from 2017. Excuse me, it's another one of these weeks where I'm choking on something. This is an excuse to drink beer. The first movie is called, for 2017, I Don't Feel at Home in This World Anymore. If you watch the show, you know that anything that has to do with Blue Ruin or with Green Room, we respect that the way we respect the movie The Warriors. Those films are great. The guy who wrote and directed this he stars in Blue Ruin and he appears in Green Room. And this movie is incredible. Imagine Death Wish, but imagine if Death Wish was on a smaller scale. Somebody who just gets tired of getting ripped off, and that's what this is. There's a woman who gets tired of just people being mean to her, being jerks. Finally, somebody breaks into her house and they take her laptop and some silverware, and she kind of snaps, and she snaps in the coolest possible way. See this movie, it's generated 2 great lines, which I use all the time, which is one is, I threw it that hard, and the other one is, that's not your lawn, tiger. Excuse me. The second movie is from 2020, and it's called Freaky. And it was originally called Freaky Friday the 13th. Folks, if you haven't got a good teen body swap comedy lately, if you haven't seen one of those, it's your chance again. There used to be things like Freaky Friday and 18 Again, where teenagers would swap bodies. And this, a young teenage girl swaps bodies with a serial killer. And the serial killer is played by Vince Vaughn. And part of the joy of this movie is watching Vince Vaughn act like a teenage girl. He's like running like this. And yeah, and the teenage girl, of course, is now a serial killer. And I thought that was going to be the best part. But no, the best part is Vince Vaughn inhabited by a teenage girl. So I'm going to cough my way out. And those are my recommendations.
I would like to recommend a Netflix movie. It's a documentary called Bob Ross, Happy Accidents, Betrayal, and Greed. It's about the painter Bob Ross. It's a heartwarming story in a way, but there's also a dark underbelly to the tale. That's where the betrayal and greed come in. And that's all I'll say about it. It's on Netflix.
Does he team up with Richard Kuklinski to get some revenge? Going to paint some happy clouds over top of the decaying bodies.
Yeah.
I think Ed Gein had a little more of an angle on that.
That could have been a whole separate episode. Who was the most artistic serial killer? Because I'll go with Nielsen, because when Nielsen cut that one guy's head off, the guy did have cut on the dotted line. And I learned that fact from Joe.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
It's real. It's finally here. Okay, goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Good night, Frosty.
Everybody.
Good night.